Well, Canada, you are no longer glorious and you are no longer free. Not as long as you have Trudeau and his administration in charge. And this is High Cheese with Darren Maloney. Today is February 21st, 2022. And again, I want to go back to Canada because this is a very important thing that's going on up there. Because again, I said before, this is a dry run for the globalists. And it will affect us one day if we let it. Now, the truckers have not let this happen to them up in Canada. And I will explain later, the truckers won. But right now, this country is not glorious, and this country up north is not free. Now, I'm going to play a clip, and it's a clip of, and some of you may have already heard, it's a poor old lady, grandmother, that is in a walker that gets trampled by the Canadian Mounted Police. Trampled her. Is this glorious? Is this free? Now, the streets are cleared in Ottawa as of today, and they have checkpoints. And from reports, it reminds me a lot of East Germany. Checkpoints in every corner. People have to show their papers or identification, and it's terrible. Is that free? Is that free, Mr. Trudeau? All right, let me go to this clip, and then we'll get back.
My heart, this is peace, love, and happiness. Peace. We are at peace from protest. We are at peace from protest.
Hold the line! Here comes the horses.
Back!
Hey, stand down! Oh my gosh! Oh my goodness! Look what you did to her! Look what you did to her! You trampled on the lady! Shame on you! Shame on every one of you! She had a walker and she just got crushed! They just trampled a lady with a walker!
And thank you very much, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. You just went down 2 rungs in my book. Now, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police was the premier law enforcement throughout the world. Remember Dudley Do-Right when you were a kid? For some of us that are a little older, there was a wonderful cartoon, Dudley Do-Right. He did everything right. He was a Royal Canadian Mounted Policeman. He would be ashamed today. And you'll never find this in the government media up there. Now, the mainstream media is controlled by the government of Canada. They fund them, everyone. And the only time you get objective news is from citizen journalists. Now, we already have a report that a reporter from Rebel News, which is a non-government news agency, was shot point blank in the leg by a tear gas launcher. Now, there's also a report that citizen journalist Zot was arrested and detained. I don't know if he has been released at this point, but we do know that he has been arrested. Wonderful. So what I want to do now is I want to flip to who may be an unsung hero in this, and it's former police chief Slowly from Ottawa. He resigned, and the word I got from people up there is that the Ottawa police did not want to do this, and many of the Ottawa police were following the lead of the police chief. I think he thought it was the wrong thing to do, and he did the honorable thing by resigning. Now, after he resigned, Ottawa had asked the former chief of the Waterloo Regional Police Service to take his place. And after contemplating it, I guess he decided he wasn't going to do this. So now they got number 3. He's probably some lower tier knucklehead that will do anything that his superiors ask him because he wants to climb the ladder. And these are the people that are dangerous. They're not the brightest. They're not the first pick, but they will do anything their masters say in order to get ahead in the bureaucracy. And I got a feeling that this is the case with this current interim police chief. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip from him. And let me play it. And let me, I think you'll be able to pick it up, but we'll go over it when we come back. But notice how he says he's going to continue pursuing these things. after these protesters were gone. So he's going to go after these protesters, and he's going to go after their bank accounts. He's going to go after their licenses. He may go after their kids. Let me play this, and then we'll come back.
I was unfortunately hit with some pepper spray. I just have a question. There's some video cameras that the police are using, and some news outlets are reporting that you're gathering intelligence with those cameras. Can you elaborate, like, if the protesters at this point, retreat and go home, are they going to be getting sort of repercussions down the road? Or are you going to be sort of actively pursuing the people that you've been sort of documenting and filming who are still out there protesting? What are your plans after this, after the protest is over?
Thank you. It's a great question. And the simple answer is yes. If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely. This investigation will go on for months to come. It has many, many different streams, both from a federal financial level, from a provincial licensing level, from a criminal code level, from a municipal breach of court order, breach of court injunction level. It will be a complicated and time-consuming investigation that will go on for a period of time. You have my commitment that that investigation will continue, and we will hold people accountable for taking our streets over.
And could I just ask one more question?
Can we ask a question, Mr.
This
Ayala?
concludes the media availability. Ceci conclut le point de presse. Merci.
I don't even want to say this police chief's name because I think he's a fool. Now, my wife and I, we've been watching hours and hours of live coverage from citizen journalists. And this was the most peaceful protest I've ever seen. There were kids there playing hockey, barbecues, something like a backyard barbecue. You know, you have a family gathering. I think some of my family gatherings were more violent. And this is what they're doing to these poor people? Grandmothers? So they're going to run over a grandmother with a horse and then prosecute her months from now? Now, here's the interesting thing that I have to find out, and I don't know yet, is the War Powers Act is going to be voted on tonight, from what I hear. And that will give Trudeau the ability to go further, continue what he's doing right now. As I explained in my last episode, he can implement the War Powers Act. He calls it the Emergency Authorization Act, but it's nothing more than the War Powers Act with a new name. So he's allowed 7 days after he implements the War Powers Act. He has 7 days to do what he is doing right now, but he needs Parliament authority after 7 days, and they're voting on this tonight. And I hope that Parliament has enough wisdom to not pass this. There are so many reasons not to. And there's so many reasons why would anyone want to implement a War Powers Act over some truckers, over some peaceful truckers, some peaceful citizens? And meanwhile, what they're not telling you is that there was eco-terrorism up in British Columbia. But nobody's saying anything about that. Yet eco-terrorists attack a work crew that's building a gas pipeline over in British Columbia. They wrecked equipment. They hurt a patrolman, but you hear nothing about that. You know why? Because Trudeau likes the eco-terrorists, but he doesn't like truckers. He doesn't like his citizens. So I hope that they're wise enough tonight, and tonight at 8 o'clock they're supposed to vote. I hope they're wise enough to stop this insanity. Now, one of the things that I find interesting is that I hope that if they shoot this thing down, that this police chief will not be able to go after these peaceful protesters in a way that he described, because they don't deserve it. They just don't deserve it. Okay, let me take a break. Okay, welcome back. Now, I mentioned before that this is really important to us here in the United States because this essentially is a dry run on how the globalists are going to treat similar situations. And I'm going to play a tape for you, and it's from 2015's World Economic Forum. It's where Klaus Schwab, the uber globalist, introduces Justin Trudeau. And you have to listen to these words. And it exposes both Trudeau and Schwab what they want out of this world. Now, essentially what they want, and I think most of us know what globalists are, but just to put everything in context, is that the globalists want nation states to have a backseat to international organizations and corporations. That's what he wants. International organizations and corporations will run your life, not nation states, not democracy, but the corporations and the international organizations. And just take a look at this glowing appraisal that Schwab has on Trudeau. And then we'll come back, because this is really important.
As you know, the theme of this annual meeting is Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We are very glad that at the beginning of this meeting, you are talking to us to represent also a new open Canada. I want to use this opportunity also to thank our Canadian constituency, which always has been a very loyal and very much engaged constituency here at the Forum. But now, I think with you, together with our constituents, Prime Minister, we can make sure that in the future we strengthen the cooperation even more with your country. Prime Minister, we are very much looking forward to listen to you.
Now, that was from 2016. I think I mentioned before it was from 2015. But isn't this guy, doesn't he sound creepy? Now, the interesting thing is that he also mentioned that the Canadian representatives there, and I'm assuming that these are high-ranking officials from the Canadian government, have been very loyal. He uses the word loyal to the World Economic Forum. So their loyalties aren't to Canada. Their loyalties are to the globalists. And those people he was mentioning are probably in the administration today. Now, my brother had pointed out, and he had sent me something about a grooming program that the World Economic Forum has. And they call it, let's see what they call it, the Young Global Leaders Program. And I guess it's an indoctrination program into globalism. And what they do is, I guess they train these people and they put them out into the world, and they support them when they can and where they can. And apparently a lot of them have fell in Canada. Now, from what I hear is the Deputy Prime Minister, who's managing this attempted takedown of the truckers, is an uber globalist. Her loyalties are not to Canada. They're to herself and to globalism. But like I said, the truckers are winning. The truckers have already gotten the passports in many of the provinces to be repealed. And even more importantly, they have sent a message to the globalists that it's the real people of the world that control the economy. I don't care what these globalists do. If the truckers decide they're going to shut down, no country will survive. So it's the plumbers, it's the nurses, it's the cops, it's the truckers that control your country, not Klaus Schwab. And the only reason that Klaus Schwab would is if you let them. And that's why Canada is so important to us here in the United States, because it's a test run. And ironically, President Biden just extended the COVID emergency for whatever reason. Here it is going away, and he's extending the emergency. Go figure that one. So the good thing is that whatever the case is, the Premier of Alberta is going to sue the federal government over this War Powers Act. And I'm going to play you a clip from the Premier.
Is an unnecessary and disproportionate measure that can violate civil liberties, invades provincial jurisdiction, and creates a very dangerous but precedent for the future. And it's not necessary. As we've demonstrated, The question then is, why does the federal government, using a power that is not necessary to seize bank accounts and assets, for example, from people arbitrarily, extrajudicially, without court orders based on their opinions or who they've donated to, power is really designed to interrupt things like terrorist financing. It doesn't make sense. That's why Alberta and 6 other provinces have spoken out against invocation of the Federal Emergencies Act. I've said that clearly to the Prime Minister a week ago. We've written to him underlining our reasons for opposing the Emergencies Act. And now I can announce that Alberta will be filing a court challenge to the Government of Canada's invocation of the Emergency Act.
And that premier's name was Jason Kenney. Jason Kenney from Alberta. The funny thing is, Mo Brooks, representative from Alabama, wants to give the truckers asylum. And let's take them. We'd love to have people like that. So I want to switch to Russia right now. Here's what we have. Right now is we have Putin signs a decree recognizing the separatist area in Ukraine. And he has ordered troops into separatist-held parts of eastern Ukraine in what the Kremlin called a peacemaking mission, just hours after he signed decrees recognizing the independence of Moscow-backed regions. I think a couple of episodes I had mentioned that the Duma had passed a resolution asking Putin to sign this and recognizing this area in Ukraine. And I had mentioned that, well, this could be his hook to go in and for lack of a better word, invade. And this is an invasion. And so President Biden has responded with sanctions. And let's see what those sanctions are. The White House said Biden would soon issue an executive order that will prohibit new investment, trade, and financing by U.S. persons to, from, or in the 2 Ukrainian regions under the control of Russian-backed separatists, Donetsk and Luhansk. The order will also provide authority to impose sanctions on any person determined to operate in those areas of Ukraine. Let's see. The White House added these sanctions were not the same punishing ones the U.S. had threatened for weeks, crippling Russia's banking sector, restricting access to semiconductors, targeting Putin and those close to him, and more, if Russia actually launched an invasion. These measures are separate from and would be in addition to the swift and severe economic measures we have been preparing and coordinating with allies and partners should Russia further invade Ukraine. Well, they're in Ukraine. Wasn't Biden's press conference where he clarified is that, well, an invasion is boots on the ground? Well, they got boots on the ground in Ukraine. It may not be there yet, but Putin gave him the go-ahead. So again, this whole convoluted message that Biden has created is just not helping anyone. Now, I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, it's just a distraction at this point. It's trying to get people to distract from our own problems here. And maybe it's true. Because I just don't see any real clear message here from the Biden administration. And with that said, I just want to play. I'm sorry, I am always picking on Jake Sullivan, but he deserves it. Because he's a political hack that shouldn't be in there. You know, again, this is Jake Sullivan that's showing up in the John Durham reports and the indictments. So let me just play this. And, let me play it. We'll get back to it.
And Jake, before you go, can you help the American people understand why we should be concerned about this? This country, people are looking at COVID. They're looking at rising prices. They're looking at, the gas is high, the food is high. Why should we pay close attention to this? Why does this matter to us?
We have seen before how a small war in Europe can grow if we don't stand up in strong and resolute terms to defend our allies and partners. That's why President Biden has sent troops to NATO territory, not to fight Russia and Ukraine, but to defend NATO. And that has helped keep the peace over the course of the past 7 decades in Europe, kept a major power war between the U.S. and Russia from happening. I think it matters, and it's the basic value of freedom of choice and freedom of destiny for all people everywhere. That's deep in the American DNA, and that's why we support the Ukrainian people in this time.
So the question was a good question, but I have absolutely no idea what the hell Sullivan is talking about. And the question was, well, we've got rising prices, we've got inflation, we've got all these problems internally with our country. Why should we worry about Ukraine? Well, he goes off on this diatribe about, and I think he's assuming that this is equivalent to World War I, where a small skirmish in that area turned into a big war. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think anybody is going to think that's going to happen unless it's a neocon. And then he goes on to say, well, we have to protect our NATO allies. Well, Ukraine isn't in NATO. Putin has never said that he's going to attack Poland or any member of the NATO countries. So again, it can't be about NATO. And then he falls back on, well, we have to protect the Ukrainian people. Well, that's nice, but we're not going to go to war over it. Speaking of Sullivan and the Durham report, look, I just want to give you a heads up on how the media is going to handle this whole thing. And, this is going to drag out could drag out for years. And eventually there are going to be people going to jail. And the media is going to play it this way. And don't get frustrated. They're going to play it out as Donald Trump going after his enemies and putting them in jail. So they're going to try to twist this thing into Donald Trump going after his enemies, making sure that his enemies go to jail. And that's it. That's how, you're not going to change their spin on this thing. They're first going to deny it. Oh, this is old news. This is old news. This is old news. Meanwhile, the trials are going to come. People are going to go to jail. And they're going to say, this is retribution. This is political retribution. When in fact, the whole premise of the Russian hoax was retribution. Okay, I want to give you my 2 cents on this Michigan-Wisconsin brawl that happened after the game. I'll tell you one thing. I'm not taking sides in any of this, but I've come to the conclusion, and I've looked at the video a number of times, but the coach of Wisconsin, Greg Gard, is a coward. You take a look at what he did. He knew that Juwan Howard was ticked off, yet he steps in front of him, impedes his path of progress to explain why he did this, instead of just shaking his hand saying, okay, I'll give you a call later. So he impedes Juwan Howard progress. And he knows Juwan Howard's ticked off. And then he touches his elbow. And, that's an aggressive act, particularly for a taller guy. And I'm a taller guy. I played Division I basketball, and I've been in similar situations. You start touching guys, grabbing guys' elbow, you know that you're going to hold them back because somebody's going to pop them. So then all this scrum happens, all hell breaks loose. And where is Greg Gard? He's meandered out into half court, somewhere in mid court, just watching everything go on. Really doesn't try to help get his players out of there or anything. He's just standing around like a coward. Now, it seems to me he's like the instigator type. Just wants to instigate and then run away, let everybody else fight. I don't think you want your coach to be like that. And I would be much more concerned about the Wisconsin coach than Juwan Howard. Nobody really got hurt. And he's showing a little emotion. So let's not beat him up for that. And this kind of parlays into another story. I don't know if you read about this story about this mother in Times Square. She's there with her 2 children. One is a teenager, one is, I think, 4 or 5 years old. And some delinquent or some mentally incapacitated person punches her kid, her 4 or 5-year-old kid. Well, that mother chased that guy down and tackled him until the cops came. So you tell me, if you're that woman, who would you rather be standing next to, Juwan Howard or Greg Gard? Greg Gard would take off. Maybe Juwan Howard would give him a little street justice. Now, again, I am not saying that anytime a coach gets ticked off, he should start punching people. What I'm saying is that one thing I know is this Gard is a coward. And if I played for him, I would be really ticked off. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you see some transfers later on from Wisconsin over the years on this. But again, I hope Juwan Howard does not get suspended, or if he gets suspended, make it minimal. A simple fight in sports, that's big deal. Have you ever seen a hockey game? Fights happen. People get ticked off. But there's no reason for a guy like Gard to instigate Juwan Howard and then run away. All right. Okay, let's turn to business. A massive Credit Suisse leak reportedly reveals possible criminal ties among 18,000 accounts. It says here, Credit Suisse was scrambling Sunday to contain the fallout from its latest scandal after several newspapers reported that more than 18,000 leaked accounts show that criminals, alleged human rights abusers, and sanctioned individuals have been clients of the Swiss bank. Isn't that nice? I just find it ironic. You've got Canadian banks hammering down on truckers and innocent Canadian protesters. Meanwhile, you have Credit Suisse actively or has actively pursued accounts from dictators, alleged human right abusers, et cetera, et cetera. But that will change one day. So let's turn to the market. So right now it is Monday, February 21st, 2022. And the Dow futures have been taking a hit from this whole Russia excursion into eastern Ukraine. And let me just give you some numbers. It says here, Dow futures right now down 1.27%. S&P is down 1.54%. NASDAQ is down 2.19%. And these are all futures. Oil is up right now 3.02% to $93.82 a barrel. The 10-year bond is down 6 basis points to 1.872%. Gold is up 0.64% to $1,911.90. Silver is up 0.39% to $24.08. Bitcoin is down 2.71% to $37,292.69. Ethereum is down 1.09% to $2,601.63, and XRP is down 9.3% to 0.71. Okay, let's take a look at earnings for the week. And on Tuesday, we've got Home Depot, Palo Alto Networks, HSBC Holdings, Macy's, and Toll Brothers are reporting earnings. On Wednesday, the 23rd, we've got Lowe's, Rio Tinto, Stellantis, and Barclays. Then on Thursday, we've got Alibaba, Royal Bank of Canada, Intuit, Moderna, and Dell. Then on Friday, we have Swiss Re, Icon Enterprises, and AES Corporation. And let's now take a look at the economic calendar for the week. On Tuesday, February 22nd, we've got the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, year over year. We've got the FHFA Home Price Index, year over year. We've got the Market Service PMI flash numbers. And then we've got consumer confidence. And let's see, the estimate is 109.5. We shall see. That's coming at 10 o'clock tomorrow. On Wednesday, we have nothing scheduled. Then on Thursday, we've got the initial jobless claims report, continuing jobless claims. We've got the gross domestic product revision. We've got gross domestic income revision. And then we have new home sales. Then on Friday's an important day. We've got nominal personal income. We've got nominal consumer spending. We've got PCE inflation monthly, core inflation monthly, PCE inflation year over year. We've got real disposable income, real consumer spending, the University of Michigan consumer sentiment, 5-year inflation expectation, and pending home sales. So I've been saying all year, there's so many headwinds on stocks. I just don't see the stocks ending up for the year. I see a lot of downside to stocks, and that's where I am. I just don't see any fundamentals out there that will show us or show me that stocks are a good place to be. Now, again, I'm not giving any advice on stocks, but that's what I think. And we still have the Fed. So in spite of all this Russia, I won't call it noise because it does affect the market, but I do think that what the Fed does is much more important than what happens in Russia in the sense of moving the market. So you have a lot of headwinds. And again, it doesn't look good for stocks for the year. Okay, with that said, I hope you have a good week and a safe week. And I shall see you on Saturday. Thank you so much for listening.